25 meters above the jungle floor. Lorelei Thatcher stopped breathing. Not from fear, from discipline. Her hands bleeding from 47 minutes of climbing, knuckles scraped raw against banyan bark gripped the branch beneath her. The wood was hot, slick with humidity. Every surface in this jungle sweated. The trees, the rocks, the men who died here. Sweat pooled in the hollow of her throat, dripped from her jawline. Soaked through her Marine Corps utility uniform until the fabric clung to her skin like wet canvas. Her back ached. Her thighs burned from the climb. Her shoulders screamed from hauling 9 pounds of Springfield rifle up through 30 meters of vertical hell. Below her, invisible through the dense canopy, Marines were dying. She could hear them on the radio clipped to her belt, voices trying to stay calm, failing. Blue leader to all units. Static crackled. 6 more down. Repeat 6 KIA in the last 30 minutes. Cannot locate sniper positions. Where the hell are they shooting from? 6 men, 6 telegrams, 6 families in places like Nebraska or Tennessee who would learn the words. Regret to inform you and feel their worlds collapse. Sergeant Lorelei Thatcher. 22 years old, 5'7", 138 pounds of sharecropper's daughter from Mississippi pulled herself onto the platform she'd been climbing toward. Nature had built this platform. 3 massive branches converged here, creating a floor roughly 6 feet across. Aerial roots hung like curtains. Foliage dense enough to hide a human body, but thin enough barely to shoot through if you knew where to look. She knew where to look. Her father had taught her that. Ezekiel Thatcher, who'd never owned land but had owned knowledge, had taught his daughter this truth. If you want to kill something that lives in the trees, baby girl, you've got to become part of the trees yourself. Lore unslung the Springfield M1903A1 from across her back. Serial number 1538942. She knew the number, knew the weapon's quirks, knew it pulled slightly left at 300 yards, knew the trigger broke at exactly 4 pounds of pressure, knew she had 43 rounds in her ammunition pouch, knew there were at least 27 enemy snipers somewhere in the canopy across from her position. The mathematics were simple, brutal, final. Through her unearthly 8x scope, pristine glass, perfect clarity, the jungle transformed. What had been an impenetrable wall of green from ground level became a 3-dimensional map. Gaps appeared where none had existed. Sightlines opened. Patterns emerged from chaos like constellations from darkness. And there, 300 yards northeast, roughly her same elevation, something wrong. A platform. Branches that had been cut, not broken, foliage arranged too perfectly, too symmetrically. Nature was random. This was deliberate. And on that platform, barely visible through layers of camouflage, a human form. A Japanese sniper who'd killed 6 Marines in 30 minutes was lying prone, his rifle trained on the ridge below where American forces were pinned down. Bleeding out. Dying while officers shouted into radios and medics crawled through mud already soaked with too much blood. Lore's hands stopped shaking. They always stopped when she found the shot. Her breath slowed, deepened, settled into the rhythm her father had taught her. In through the nose, hold, out through the mouth, slow, like you got all the time in the world, because when you're hunting baby girl, patience is the only thing faster than a bullet. Her heartbeat, hammering during the climb, dropped to 50 beats per minute. 45. 40, 300 yards. She adjusted the scope. Quarter turn right, 2 clicks up. The crosshairs drifted across leaves and shadows until they found flesh. Wind 3 miles per hour left to right. She felt it on her left cheek, saw it in the way the canopy moved at the edge of her vision. The leaves trembled. Barely. But enough. Angle 12 degrees downward. Shooting down was different. The bullet would strike higher than the crosshairs suggested. Most shooters didn't know that. She'd learned it at 10 years old, missing a squirrel because she hadn't accounted for the angle. She'd never missed that shot again. Lore exhaled, completely, until her lungs were empty and her body was perfectly still. The world narrowed to a single point 300 yards away. She squeezed. The rifle bucked. The report cracked through the canopy. Birds exploded from nearby trees in panic. Through the scope, she watched the Japanese sniper jerk once, violent, involuntary, and then go absolutely still in the way that only death brings. 9:52 a.m. Target number 1. She didn't celebrate, didn't feel triumph, just the cold mathematics of survival. 1 down, 26 to go, and they'd heard the shot. Lore shifted left on her platform. 3 feet, deliberate, necessary. Muzzle flash gave away approximate location, but approximate wasn't precise. In a sniper duel, precision was the only thing separating living from dying. 70 yards left of her first target, another platform, another rifle barrel catching sunlight that filtered through a gap in the canopy. This sniper was turning, searching, looking for whoever had just killed his comrade. He was looking at ground level. They all were. Because doctrine said snipers operated from the ground. Every field manual, every training school, every tactical briefing. Snipers didn't climb tree, except this one did. Lore fired again, 9:54 a.m. Target number 2. The second Japanese sniper dropped his rifle. It tumbled through branches, disappeared into undergrowth 30 meters below. The man followed 3 seconds later. His body struck wood on the way down, made sounds no body should make. Her radio crackled. Blue leader, sniper fire has stopped. Repeat, enemy fire ceased on north approach. What's happening? What was happening was mathematics. What was happening was a 22-year-old woman applying lessons from a father who'd never worn a uniform, using techniques for hunting squirrels, executing tactics that existed nowhere in military doctrine. What was happening was improvisation born of necessity. What was happening was 26 men about to discover the rules had changed. But Lore didn't key her radio. Not yet. Because 400 yards away, higher elevation, another sniper had just figured out where she was. She saw the muzzle flash before she heard the shot. The bullet passed 6 inches from her head. Close enough to feel the air displacement against her cheek. Close enough to hear the supersonic crack splitting atmosphere. Too close. Her body froze. Every muscle locked. Not fear, the absolute stillness of prey that knows a predator has spotted it. The Japanese sniper at 400 yards had high ground. Better concealment. Had just demonstrated he knew exactly where she was and possessed the skill to almost put a bullet through her skull. In a fair fight, he had every advantage, so Lore didn't fight fair. She waited. 2 seconds. 3, counting heartbeats while calculations ran through her mind. Distance, angle, wind, the probability of living versus dying in the next few seconds. The Japanese sniper shifted, micro-movement, 3 inches, adjusting aim for a follow-up shot. That movement gave her everything. His exact position, his body angle, the cant of his rifle. Lore moved like she'd moved 1,000 times in Mississippi trees. Fast, fluid, without hesitation, a single motion that took less than 2 seconds from start to finish. She brought her rifle up. Acquired target, fired, 9:58 a.m., target number 3. The Japanese sniper tumbled backward off his platform. His rifle, a Type 97, fell separately. They made different sounds hitting ground. Metal against earth, flesh against wood. Lore's hands were shaking now. Adrenaline flooding her system. The chemical aftermath of near death that her body was only now processing because during the event she'd been too focused on survival to feel anything. She forced her breathing to slow, forced her hands to steady, forced herself to scan for additional threats. Because she knew there were more out there, many more. The radio crackled again. Blue leader to all stations, enemy sniper fire completely ceased. We are advancing. Repeat advancing on the ridge, but somebody tell me who the hell is shooting from our rear position. Nobody answered, because the person shooting from their rear had disobeyed a direct order, had abandoned her assigned post, had committed an offense that could result in court-martial, had saved 6 lives in 6 minutes. Captain Thaddeus Aldridge's voice came through again, this time with an edge. Not anger, not confusion, something between. Sierra 1, if that's a friendly position, identify yourself immediately. Lore reached for her radio, hesitated, keyed the transmit button. Sierra 1. 2 words, nothing more. Static. Then, Sierra 1, what is your position and designation? She didn't answer, couldn't answer, because answering meant admitting insubordination, meant explaining why she was 25 meters up when doctrine demanded ground-level operations. Instead, she went back to work, because 3 Marines were still pinned, because Japanese snipers were still out there, because men were still dying while officers debated protocol. Lore scanned the canopy, methodical, left to right, near to far, looking for patterns she'd learned hunting in Mississippi forests, unnatural symmetry, arranged foliage, geometric precision that marked human construction. And she found them. Not 1 platform, not 3, not 5. She found 17. 17 carefully camouflaged sniper positions. 17 Japanese marksmen who had spent days, maybe weeks, constructing an elaborate network of elevated firing positions that created interlocking fields of fire across the entire approach. It was brilliant. It was devastating. It was a massacre waiting to happen. Every Marine advancing up that ridge was exposed to fire from multiple angles. Fire from positions they couldn't see, couldn't locate, couldn't return effectively because they were looking in the wrong place. The Japanese had turned the jungle into a weapon, and nobody on the American side had realized it until a sharecropper's daughter from Mississippi climbed a tree and looked at the battlefield from a different angle. Her radio, Blue leader to Sierra 1, we need you to identify. She cut transmission, raised her rifle, found target number 4, 310 yards, northeast quadrant, a sniper who'd remained motionless while his comrades died. Smart, disciplined, not smart enough. 10:06 a.m. Target number 4, back to southeast. Scan, identify, calculate. 10:09 a.m. Target number 5. The rhythm was becoming automatic. Scan, find, aim, fire, work the bolt, chamber new round, scan again. Her shoulder was starting to ache from recoil. The Springfield kicked hard. After every shot, pain radiated through her collarbone. She ignored it. 10:12 a.m. Target number 6. 10:14 a.m. Target number 7. 7 targets in 16 minutes. On the ground, Marines were advancing. For the first time in 3 days, they were moving up the ridge without taking casualties, without being pinned by invisible fire. Private Silas Brennan was among them. She could see him through gaps in the canopy, 19 years old, from somewhere in Ohio, moving low, weapon ready, following his squad leader. The kid was going to make it, probably. Maybe, if she could keep eliminating threats before they eliminated him. Lore swept her scope across the tree line, counting platforms, calculating ranges, prioritizing targets based on proximity to advancing forces. 12 more visible positions. She'd identified 17 total, had eliminated 7, but how many more were out there that she couldn't see from this angle? How many were already repositioning? How long before they did what she'd done, climbed high enough to look down instead of across? She found target 8. 270 yards, lower elevation, moving between positions, movement made you visible. 10:16 a.m. Target number 8, target 9, 320 yards, eastern edge, 10:19 a.m. Target number 9, the radio, Blue leader to all stations, ridge is wait, taking fire from. Lore's scope found the source. Target 10, aiming at ground troops. 10:21 a.m. Target number 10, below Marines reached the ridge crest. She could hear victory in their voices, first time in 3 days. Blue leader to all stations, ridge secured. Establishing defensive perimeter. Outstanding work. Outstanding. Lore pushed the word away, scanned for 11. But before she could locate the next platform, her radio crackled with something different. A voice. Heavily accented English, harsh, urgent, Japanese radio chatter, cross-frequency bleed, atmospheric interference letting their transmissions leak through. A man speaking rapid Japanese. Then another voice translating. Target confirmed. American sniper elevated position, large banyan tree grid 472. All available units concentrate fire, kill the shooter. I want maximum suppression on that position now. Lore's blood went cold. They'd found her. She grabbed her rifle and rolled left just as the first bullets arrived. The sound was unlike anything she'd experienced. Not individual shots, not automatic fire. This was concentrated fire from multiple positions simultaneously. Dozens of rifles firing at a single target. Her tree. Bark exploded in fist-sized chunks. Branches shattered. Leaves disintegrated. The air filled with the smell of torn wood and gun smoke and her own fear. Lore pressed flat against the platform, made herself as small as possible. The wood beneath her shuddered with each impact. She could feel vibrations through her entire body. This was what it felt like to be prey. This was what those Japanese snipers had felt in the seconds before she'd killed them. The firing continued, 30 seconds, 45, a full minute that turned her position into shredded ruin. Then it stopped. Silence. Lore stayed motionless, 5 seconds, 10, listening, then more fire, this time from ground positions, Japanese infantry firing upward through the canopy. Rounds punched through from below, seeking her platform. American voices shouting, "They're targeting the tree, covering fire, suppress those positions." Marines opened up. Machine guns hammered. The jungle erupted into competing violence. She couldn't stay. The platform was compromised. The tree was compromised. Eventually, enough structural damage would accumulate and everything would collapse. But she couldn't climb down under fire. She was trapped. A bullet passed so close to her head she felt the sonic crack against her ear. Another splintered the branch 3 inches from her hand. And then something hit her scope. Not direct. A fragment. Bark or wood or bullet shrapnel that struck nearby. But it hit the objective lens hard enough to spiderweb the glass. Lore brought the rifle up, looked through the scope. The world was fractured, distorted, unusable. For 3 seconds she stared at the ruined optic, processing this new reality. No scope meant no long-range precision. No scope meant iron sights, only the basic notch and post built into the rifle. Iron sights were accurate to 200 yards. Maybe 250 in expert hands. Most of her remaining targets were 300 yards or more. The mathematics had just changed, not in her favor. 3 hours earlier, 6:45. Captain Thaddeus Aldridge stood in the command tent studying a topographic map that was outdated the day it was printed. New Guinea's terrain refused to hold still. Rivers changed course. Trails disappeared. What looked like solid ground turned out to be swamp that could swallow a man. "Gentlemen," Aldridge said, voice carrying controlled tension. "We move at 0900 hours, standard fire and maneuver. First squad advances, second provides covering fire, third in reserve." The officers nodded. They'd heard this before, different place, same tactics, same results. 17 Marines killed, 23 wounded, all on the same approach to the same ridge, all from sniper fire. Sergeant Lorelei Thatcher stood at the back, arms crossed. She'd been studying casualty reports. The angles were wrong. The wound trajectories suggested fire from elevated positions. She raised her hand. Aldridge looked up. His expression suggested he was not particularly interested in input from sergeants. Particularly not this sergeant, the one from Montford Point with exceptional marksmanship and noted tendency toward independent tactical thinking. Military bureaucracy's polite way of saying she didn't always follow orders she considered tactically unsound. Captain Lore said carefully, "I've been analyzing the ballistics. The angles of entry suggest fire from elevated positions, not ground level." Aldridge's jaw tightened. "That's not how snipers operate, Sergeant Hawkins." "Thatcher, sir." "What?" "My name is Thatcher, sir, not Hawkins." A few officers shifted uncomfortably. Correcting a captain in front of other officers was bold. Stupid, maybe. Aldridge's face flushed. "Sergeant Thatcher," he said, emphasizing the name like he was doing her a favor. "Snipers follow doctrine. Ground-level concealed positions with good fields of fire. The Japanese follow the same principles. What you're suggesting, tree snipers, is unstable, limits mobility, contradicts every piece of tactical training." "Yes, sir, but the casualty reports are noted, and your concern is noted, but we advance at 0900 according to protocol. Understood? Not really a question, an order disguised as one. Understood, sir." But she didn't believe it. Everything about the last 3 days suggested the Japanese weren't following doctrine. They were adapting, improvising, and Americans were dying because nobody wanted to consider the possibility that the enemy might be doing something different. After the briefing, Lore walked to the perimeter where Private Silas Brennan checked his gear. 19 years old, from Ohio, had a town with 1 traffic light and 800 people, been in country 2 weeks. Hands shook, loading his rifle. "First real action, Brennan?" Lore asked. The kid looked up, face too young for this, but all their faces were too young. "Yes, Sergeant. Trained for beaches, open country. Nobody mentioned fighting ghosts in places where you can't see 20 yards. Lore knelt beside him. "Listen, when we move, stay low. Watch the trees." Brennan's forehead wrinkled. "The trees? Don't just scan ground. Look up. High up. 40-50 feet. That's where they are." "Snipers don't—" "Doctrine says they don't," Lore interrupted. "But doctrine's written by people who never fought here. Trust me. Look up." She walked away before he could ask more questions. At 900 a.m. First Squad began their advance. Lore watched from her assigned position, concealed depression 30 yards behind front lines. Standard counter-sniper protocol. She was supposed to scan for muzzle flashes, identify positions, eliminate threats. But she couldn't see anything. Jungle too dense. Canopy too thick. From ground level, visibility extended 40 yards. Beyond that, everything blended into shadows. The Japanese snipers were invisible. For 5 minutes, nothing happened. First Squad moved cautiously, using cover, a log here, rocks there. The jungle pressed in from all sides. Then a shot, a single crack. One of the Marines, Corporal Hewitt, who'd shared coffee with Lore that morning, grabbed his throat and fell. Didn't scream. The bullet severed his carotid. He was dead before hitting ground. 2 seconds later, another shot. Another Marine down, chest wound, center mass. "Sniper, take cover." Marines dove behind whatever they could find, returned fire blindly. Bullets ripped through foliage. Accomplished nothing because they were shooting at ghosts. Lore scanned through her scope, searching for muzzle flash, movement, any indication. Saw nothing. Because she was looking in the wrong place. A third shot. Fourth. 2 more Marines fell. Radio voices overlapping, pinned down. "Can't see shooter. Request covering fire. Aldridge." "All units suppress that position, grid coordinates." He rattled off meaningless numbers because nobody could see the target. Marines fired, machine guns opened up, grenades exploded. The Japanese sniper kept firing, calm, methodical. Another Marine down, and Lore made her decision. She looked at the massive banyan tree 30 yards behind her. The one soaring 30 meters into canopy. the one nobody was paying attention to. She didn't ask permission, didn't report intentions, just went. Slinging her rifle across her back, Lore moved toward the tree. Fast, deliberate. Behind her. "Thatcher, Sergeant!" "Thatcher, what are you doing? That's a direct order. Get back here." She didn't stop, started climbing. The bark was rough, hot, insects scattered. The rifle across her back caught on branches. She had to move carefully, test each handhold before committing weight. Below, battle continued. Gunfire, shouting, the wet thud of bullets hitting flesh. She climbed faster. At 10 meters, her hands were bleeding. Small cuts. Nothing serious. At 15 meters, radio Thatcher. "This is Captain Aldridge. You are in violation of direct orders. Return immediately or face court-martial. Copy." She didn't respond. Needed both hands. At 20 meters, she broke through secondary canopy. The world opened. She could see across the ridge, could see Japanese positions on opposite slope, could see everything they'd missed. At 25 meters, she reached her platform, and the real work began. 10:22 a.m. 800 yards west. Japanese headquarters. Lieutenant Takeshi Yamamoto stood over the radio face, impassive. Inside his mind was chaos. 23 men dead. 23 of his best snipers eliminated in 54 minutes by an enemy they couldn't locate, couldn't target, couldn't stop. His intelligence officer approached, holding paper with hastily scribbled notes. "Sir, we intercepted American radio traffic. The shooter identified as Sierra 1. Command referred to shooter as Sergeant Thatcher. Female voice confirmed on transmission." Yamamoto's expression didn't change, but something shifted behind his eyes. A woman. The Americans had sent a woman, and that woman had destroyed his sniper network in less than an hour. He thought of the weeks building those platforms, the planning, the confidence that American forces would never break through, all undone by one soldier who'd done what doctrine said was impossible. "Sir," the intelligence officer continued, opening a thin folder. "We have limited file on her. Sergeant L. Thatcher, female, approximately 22 years old, Montford Point Training Facility, only female in Marine Sniper Program, expert marksman, assigned 1st Marine Division, August 1943. Yamamoto took the paper, studied it. Americans didn't advertise their female soldiers. But Japanese intelligence had been tracking this development. Women in combat roles. It violated every principle of proper military organization. And yet this woman had killed 23 trained snipers. "Position?" Yamamoto asked. "Large banyan tree grid 472. Behind American lines. Elevated position estimated 25 to 30 meters. Yamamoto moved to the map, found coordinates, studied terrain. Clever. She'd positioned herself behind the advance, giving her clear field of fire across his entire defensive network. From that height, she could see what his ground-based snipers couldn't. She'd adapted, improvised, used terrain in ways that contradicted doctrine but maximized effectiveness. She'd thought like he would think. "All remaining sniper units," Yamamoto said, voice calm despite disaster unfolding. "Concentrate fire on that tree. All infantry in range engage. Maximum suppression. Make her keep her head down." "Sir, concentrating fire exposes our positions to American counterfire." "I'm aware, Sergeant. Do it anyway. That woman has killed 24 of my men. I will not allow her to kill more." Orders went out. Within 90 seconds, every Japanese position with line of sight to that banyan opened fire. Yamamoto watched through binoculars as the tree shuddered, bark exploding, branches falling, foliage disintegrating. "Maintain fire," he ordered. "Don't give her a chance to shoot back." For 2 minutes, his forces poured everything into that single target. Hundreds of rounds, maybe thousands. When they stopped, the tree looked like it had been attacked by a swarm of enormous insects. Chunks torn from trunk, branches hanging by splinters, the platform barely visible through destruction. Nothing could have survived that. "Sir," the radio operator said, "forward observers report Americans advancing on eastern positions, using our fire concentration to locate our units." Of course, because Yamamoto had traded tactical positioning for revenge, had exposed his forces to accomplish what? The death of one enemy, even if she was dead, and she probably was, the trade wasn't worth it. He'd lost this position because one American woman had climbed a tree. "All units," Yamamoto said quietly, "withdraw to secondary positions, fighting retreat, make them pay for every meter." As his forces began pullback, Yamamoto took one last look at that shattered banyan. Yama no Akuma, he thought. Mountain Devil. That's what his men called her after the first dozen kills. He hoped she was dead. Something told him she wasn't. 11:02 a.m. Lorelei's position. The firing had stopped. Lore remained motionless for 30 seconds, making sure, listening. Silence. Just jungle sounds returning. Birds, insects, wind through torn leaves. Slowly, carefully she moved. Every muscle protested. She'd been tensed so tightly during the barrage that now releasing everything hurt. She checked herself for wounds. Found blood on her forehead cut from debris. Hands torn worse than before, uniform shredded. But nothing serious. Nothing that would stop her. She was alive. Through 2 minutes of concentrated fire from multiple positions, she was alive. Lore brought her rifle up, looked at the destroyed scope. Objective lens completely shattered. Scope tube bent, whole unit useless. She unlatched the mounts, let the ruined optic fall away. It tumbled through branches below. Gone. Now just iron sights, a notch at the back, a post at the front, the same sights her father's .22 had. The same sights she'd learned on at 10 years old. They'd have to be enough. Radio crackled, Captain Aldridge's voice with genuine concern for the first time. "Sierra 1 status, that tree took heavy fire. Are you hit?" Lore keyed transmit. "Sierra 1 operational, sir. Scope destroyed, continuing with iron sights." Pause, then. "Sergeant Thatcher." "Lore, you don't have to keep going. You've done enough, more than enough. Come down." She looked through iron sights at the tree line. Found one remaining sniper platform, 315 yards. Too far for reliable iron sight shooting, but not impossible. "Negative, sir. Still have targets, still have ammunition." "Sergeant, they know where I am now, sir. If I climb down, they'll track descent. Safer staying put until job's done." Not entirely true, but not false either. Real truth was simpler. She'd started this, needed to finish. "Acknowledged," Aldridge said after a moment. "But Sergeant, don't you dare die up there. That's not a request. That's an order." "Copy that, sir." She settled back into position, hands shaking, not from fear, from adrenaline come down, from the physical reality of what she'd survived. She thought of her father, of lessons about fear and control and doing what needed doing even when your body wanted to run. Baby girl, when you're scared, that's when you slow down and breathe. When your hands shake, that's when you make them still. When the world tells you to quit, that's when you prove you won't. Lore reached into her breast pocket, pulled out a photograph wrapped in waxed paper. 2 people. A tall black man with hands that looked carved from mahogany. Beside him a boy of 16 with the same lean build, same serious eyes. Ezekiel Thatcher and Caleb Thatcher, her father and younger brother, taken 6 months ago before she'd shipped out. Caleb would be draft age in 2 years, would probably be sent here or someplace like it. That's why Lore was here, why she'd climbed this tree, why she was about to continue shooting with iron sights at targets 300 yards away, not for glory, not for medals, for Caleb, For every boy like Caleb who might not have to fight if she could help end this war one bullet at a time. She tucked the photo away, wiped her eyes with the back of her hand, picked up rifle, got back to work. 11:07 a.m. Target 11 was 315 yards. Without scope, without magnification, he was barely visible. Just a shape on a platform, just a threat to Marines below. Lore lined up iron sights, post at front, notch at back, centered on target. But iron sights didn't give precision, didn't let you see exactly where you aimed. You had to trust judgment, trust experience, trust that 10,000 hours of practice had taught you how to hit what you aimed at. She accounted for wind, distance, bullet drop, all mental calculations now, no scope to help, just her brain and experience and her father's voice saying, "You know how to do this, you've always known." She fired. Through iron sights, she saw the target jerk. Fall. 11:07 a.m. Target 11 eliminated, 16 down, 11 to go. Lore worked the bolt, chambered new round, scanned for 12, there, 290 yards, closer, better odds. 11:10 a.m., target 12, her shoulder ached from recoil. The Springfield kicked hard. After dozens of shots, she'd be feeling it for days. If she lived for days. She found 13, 340 yards, far for iron sights, very far. But waiting meant giving him time to shoot first, meant giving him time to kill Marines counting on her. She took the shot. 11:14 a.m., target 13, 14 more to go. Lore scanned, looking for movement, ground level, eastern approach, not snipers, infantry, remains of a squad moving through draw toward American positions. She counted heads through trees, hard with vegetation, but approximately 10 soldiers, heading directly toward where Brennan's squad had advanced. Lore keyed radio, a blue leader, enemy infantry approaching east flank. Squad strength 200 yards from second squad position and closing. Aldridge, can you engage? She looked at the soldiers through iron sights, saw faces, young, determined, following orders like she was. Affirmative. Light them up, Sergeant. Lore targeted last man in formation. Work back to front, create confusion. She fired. Last soldier dropped. Others kept moving, hadn't heard over their own noise. She chambered another round, aimed, fired. Second to last went down. Now they knew. Scattered, looking for cover. 11:16 a.m. Targets 14 and 15. 11:18 a.m. Targets 16 and 17. 8 soldiers left, all pinned, all probably terrified. She felt something twist in her chest, not quite guilt, not quite sorrow, something between that she didn't have time to examine. 11:20 a.m. target 18, 11:22 a.m. target 19, 6 left, 3 had found cover behind fallen logs, smart enough to know movement meant death. Lore scanned their positions through iron sights, looking for gaps, openings, mistakes. There, soldier on left. Rifle barrel visible, just the tip. But where the rifle was, the shoulder would be 18 inches behind and 6 inches right. She couldn't see the shoulder, but she knew where it was. She aimed at empty space where shoulder should be, adjusted for foliage between, fired. The bullet punched through leaves and found flesh. 11:25 a.m., target 20, 3 left, 2 broke cover, started running. 11:27 a.m., targets 21 and 22. 1 soldier remained, behind the log, absolutely still. Lore waited, patience, 30 seconds, 45, a full minute. The soldier moved, tried to reposition. 11:29 a.m., target 23. The flanking force was eliminated, 10 soldiers, all threats neutralized before they could reach American lines. Below Marines were advancing, safe. The force that would have killed them was gone, but Lore's hands were shaking worse now. More than before, 23 men dead by her hand. In 89 minutes, 23 families in Japan who would get telegrams. She thought about her father, what he'd say if he knew. Sometimes the right thing ain't the easy thing, baby girl. Sometimes you gotta do what needs doing even when it tears you up inside. She keyed radio. Blue leader flanking force neutralized. All immediate threats eliminated. Copy Sierra 1. Outstanding work. Outstanding. Laura pushed the thought away. Scanned for remaining sniper platforms, found 14, northeast quadrant, still occupied, 11:32 a.m., target 24. Found 15 southeast, 280 yards, 11:35 a.m., target 25. Found 16 eastern edge, 300 yards, 11:38 a.m., target 26. One more sniper platform visible, far northeast, 350 yards, very difficult with iron sights, but she'd come this far. She lined up the shot, calculated, trusted her training, her experience, her father's lessons. Fired. 11:42 a.m., target 27. The jungle went quiet. 27 enemy snipers eliminated, plus 10 infantry from the flanking force. 37 total enemy combatants neutralized in 115 minutes. But when people told this story, if anyone ever told it, they would remember 27. Because that's how many snipers she'd taken out. That's what had changed the battle. The infantry would be a footnote, a detail. 27 would be the number that mattered. Lore lowered her rifle. Her hands shook uncontrollably now. The adrenaline was gone, being replaced by something heavier. Below, Marines were consolidating the ridge. For the first time in 3 days, they'd taken this position. For the first time, they hadn't left half their number bleeding in dirt. Her radio, Sierra 1, all enemy contacts eliminated. Ridge secured. Repeat, ridge secured. You are cleared to descend. Lore looked down at her hands. Blood, bark, cordite residue. Copy, she said. Just one word. She began the long climb down. 11:54 a.m. ground level. Descending was harder than climbing. Muscles cramping, hands slipping. Twice she almost fell. When her boots touched ground, her legs nearly gave out. She'd been in that tree 2 hours, 47 minutes. Her body had forgotten level ground. Marines were watching. A circle of them. Respectful distance. Clearly curious. Trying to reconcile what they saw, 5'7", 138, bleeding from a dozen cuts, with what she'd accomplished. Private Brennan stepped forward, face smudged with dirt, eyes wide. Sergeant, you saved. He trailed off, couldn't find words. Lore nodded, didn't trust herself to speak. Captain Aldridge pushed through the crowd, expression complicated, relief, anger, respect, confusion. Sergeant Thatcher, he said formally. Report. She straightened, tried standing at attention despite exhausted muscles. 27 enemy snipers eliminated, sir. Additional 10 combatants from flanking force. 37 total. All threats neutralized. Ridge secure. 37. Aldridge shook his head. In under 3 hours? Yes, sir. With iron sights for the last 17. Yes, sir. After your position took sustained fire from multiple enemy positions. Yes, sir. Aldridge started to say something. Stopped. Looked past her shoulder. Face changed. Became careful, neutral. Colonel on deck, someone called. Marines snapped to attention. Lore did same, though everything hurt. Colonel Ezra Ironside Drummond walked through the circle. 50 years old. Career Marine. Face like weathered leather. Eyes that had seen too much combat. He stopped 3 feet from Lore. Looked her up and down, taking in blood. Shredded uniform, rifle with no scope. Sergeant Lorelei Thatcher, he said, voice gravelly. Do you know the penalty for disobeying direct orders in combat? Court-martial and dishonorable discharge, sir. And do you know what you've done here this morning? I eliminated enemy combatants who were... You changed the war. Drummond interrupted. You did what no one thought possible. You adapted when doctrine failed. You improvised when training didn't account for reality. You saved 40 American lives. He paused. You also violated chain of command, abandoned your assigned position, operated outside established tactics. From a purely regulatory standpoint, I should have you arrested right now. Marines shifted uncomfortably. Brennan looked like he wanted to protest. Drummond's face was unreadable. So here's your choice, Sergeant. You can face court-martial for insubordination, or you can teach my Marines how you just did that. Turn this from singular event into systematic approach. Take this tactic and make it doctrine. He stepped closer, close enough only Lore could hear. I don't give a damn about regulations right now, Sergeant. I give a damn about winning and bringing my Marines home alive. You just showed me how to do both. What's it going to be? Lore met his eyes, saw genuine respect, saw opportunity, saw a chance to turn her father's lessons into something that could save thousands, saw a chance to make sure boys like Caleb had better odds if they ended up here. I'll teach them, sir. Drummond's face broke into something that might have been a smile. Good. Training starts tomorrow 600. You'll select 12 Marines, teach them everything. And Sergeant, sir, that scope, when did it get destroyed? About 90 minutes into engagement, sir. So you made the last 17 kills with iron sights at 300 yards. Yes, sir. Drummond shook his head slowly. Where the hell did you learn to shoot like that? Lore thought of her father, of Mississippi woods, of 1,000 mornings with a .22 and patience. From my father, sir, taught me to hunt squirrels. Said if you want to kill something that lives in trees, you have to go where they are. Your father sounds like a smart man. He was, sir. Died 2 years ago. I'm sorry, Sergeant. Drummond stepped back, raised voice so all could hear. But I guarantee his lessons saved 40 lives today. And if you teach right, they'll save hundreds more before this war's done. He looked around at assembled Marines. What Sergeant Thatcher did today was extraordinary. It was also effective. Starting tomorrow, we're implementing elevated sniper tactics as standard procedure. Questions? No one spoke. Good. Dismissed. Sergeant Thatcher, get to aid station. Get those hands looked at. That's an order. Yes, sir. As Marines dispersed, Brennan approached again. Thank you, Sergeant. If you hadn't, we would have... He swallowed. Thank you. Lore nodded. Wanted to say something profound. All that came out was, just doing my job, Private. You'd do the same. I don't know if I could have, ma'am. Really don't. She looked at this 19-year-old from Ohio, saw herself reflected in his eyes, saw fear and respect and survivor's guilt mixed together. You'll never know until you're up there, she said quietly, until it's just you and trigger and choice about who lives and dies. I hope you never find out, Brennan. Truly do. She walked away before he could respond, headed toward aid station. Each step hurt. Everything hurt. But she was alive. 37 enemy soldiers weren't, and somewhere in Mississippi, Caleb Thatcher was still 16. Still had 2 years before draft board. Still had a chance because his sister climbed a tree. Even if it meant she'd never sleep soundly again. Even if it meant seeing faces every time she closed her eyes. Even if it meant she'd changed warfare in ways she didn't fully understand yet. Behind her, Marines began securing the ridge, establishing defensive positions, preparing for counterattack. Above them, wind whispered through branches that now held different kind of secret. The secret of what one woman with rifle in her father's lessons could accomplish when doctrine failed. The secret that would ripple through Pacific theater for rest of war. The secret that would be remembered as the day the Treetop Huntress changed everything. August 24th, 1943. 6 days later. Private Silas Brennan was 23 feet off the ground when his hands slipped. He caught himself on branch below. Hung there 3 seconds while his heart hammered. Below jungle floor looked impossibly far. Don't look down, Brennan. Sergeant Lorelei Thatcher called from her position 15 feet higher. Look at your next handhold. Always look where you're going, not where you'll fall. Brennan gritted teeth, found grip, pulled himself up. Day 6 of training. Colonel Drummond had selected 12 Marines. Brennan volunteered immediately. Others, some volunteers, some voluntold, ranged from enthusiastic to terrified, all learning that climbing 25 meters with full gear and rifle was harder than it looked. Laura watched from her perch as Brennan finally reached designated platform. Kid's hands were raw, face pale, but he'd made it. "Good," she said. "Now settle in, get comfortable. You're up here 3 hours." 3 hours, voice cracked. 3 hours is nothing. On the 18th, I was up almost 3. You learn to ignore cramping, ignore insects, ignore everything except target. Over 6 days, she'd taught fundamentals. How to identify trees with good platform potential. How to construct improvised platforms. How to move through canopy without being seen. How to calculate angles shooting downward. How to remain absolutely still while everything in your body screamed to move. Most were getting it. A few, like Brennan, were naturals. Others would get there eventually, or wash out. "Sergeant," called Corporal Hewitt from another tree, the one who'd been wounded, back on light duty now. "Question. Go. What do you do when you're up there and need to, you know?" Other Marines laughed. Lore didn't. "You hold it, Corporal, or plan better before climbing. Coming down to relieve yourself means losing position. Losing position means Marines die. Clear." "Clear, Sergeant." She scanned her students. 12 men in 12 trees learning a tactic that hadn't existed 7 days ago. Captain Aldridge emerged from tree line below, looked up, shook his head, not disapproval but wonder. "Sergeant Thatcher," he called. "Colonel Drummond wants you." Lore descended quickly. Her hands had healed somewhat, cuts scabbed, raw patches toughening into calluses. Her body was adapting. She dropped last 6 feet, landed in crouch, straightened. "Sir?" Aldridge's expression was complicated. Over the past week, their relationship had shifted. He no longer saw her as insubordinate sergeant. Now saw her as what tactical innovator, necessary disruption to failed doctrine. Whatever he saw made him uncomfortable in ways he was still processing. "Colonel wants demonstration," Aldridge said. "High command's here. Generals, staff officers. They've heard about what you did, want to see for themselves." Lore felt stomach tighten. "When?" 15 minutes. "Can your students perform?" She looked up at 12 Marines in trees, Brennan settling into position, Hewitt adjusting, others at various stages of competence. "They can demonstrate basic positioning, not ready for live fire." "That's fine. Command just wants to understand concept." Aldridge paused. "They're skeptical, Sergeant. Most think what you did was fluke. Can't be replicated. Won't work anywhere except this specific terrain." "Then we'll prove them wrong, sir." Aldridge almost smiled. "That's what I hoped you'd say." 15 minutes later, 3 generals stood at training area base. Behind them, cluster of staff officers with clipboards and skeptical expressions. Lore stood at attention while Colonel Drummond made introductions. "Gentleman Sergeant Lorelei Thatcher. 6 days ago, she eliminated 37 enemy combatants from elevated position. 27 of them were snipers in a coordinated network. This allowed my Marines to take a ridge we'd been unable to approach for 3 days. The technique she pioneered is now being implemented division-wide." One general, 2 stars named tape-reading Maxwell stepped forward, 60 if he was a day, career officer, face suggesting he'd seen everything and believed nothing. "Sergeant," Maxwell said, "I've read the after-action report. 37 kills in approximately 2 hours, from a tree. 27 confirmed snipers plus a 10-man infantry squad, with iron sights for final 17 engagements." "Yes, sir. That's extraordinary." "It's accurate, sir. Verified by multiple witnesses and enemy casualty counts." Maxwell's expression suggested he was deciding whether to believe those witnesses. "And you learned this technique?" Where exactly? From my father, sir. He taught me to hunt from elevated positions in Mississippi. Squirrels, mostly. One staff officer, a major, made a sound like suppressed laugh. Lore ignored him. Maxwell walked around her slowly, evaluating. Report says you're from Montford Point. Yes, sir. Only female in sniper training program. Yes, sir. And before this engagement, your combat experience consisted of... None, sir. This was my first action. Maxwell stopped, looked at Drummond. You're telling me a female sergeant with zero combat experience eliminated 37 enemy soldiers, including veteran snipers, in her first engagement? That's correct, General. It's impossible. With respect, sir, Lore said quietly. I didn't know it was impossible, so I did it anyway. Maxwell's eyes snapped back. For a moment, his expression was unreadable. Then something shifted. Interest. Show me. For the next hour, Lore demonstrated. She climbed while generals watched, showed how to identify viable trees, explained advantages of height, expanded fields of fire, ability to see over obstacles, concealment from ground observation, explained disadvantages, exposure to counterfire once discovered, limited mobility, difficulty evacuating if wounded. Her students demonstrated various aspects. Brennan showed climbing technique. Hewitt demonstrated remaining motionless. Private Kelso showed improvised platform construction. Generals watched, took notes, asked questions. Most questions focused on replicability. Could this work in other terrain? Could average Marines be trained? Could it be standardized? Lore answered honestly. Some terrain was better, some Marines would excel, some wouldn't. Like any specialized skill required selection and training. But yes, could be standardized, taught, could save lives. When demonstration concluded, Maxwell approached again. Sergeant Thatcher, he said, what you've shown us is unorthodox, contradicts established doctrine, requires us to rethink fundamental assumptions about sniper employment. Yes, sir. Which means it's exactly what we need. He turned to Drummond. Colonel, I want this program expanded, training materials developed, this technique taught at every sniper school in the Marine Corps. Drummond nodded. Understood, sir. Maxwell looked back at Lore. You've done good work, Sergeant, important work. The Marine Corps owes you a debt. Just doing my duty, sir. Indeed. He paused. I'm recommending you for Silver Star. Your actions on August 18th were extraordinary. They deserve recognition. Something warm unfurled in Lore's chest. Recognition. Official recognition. Thank you, sir. You've earned it, Sergeant. God knows you've earned it. December 15th, 1943. 4 months later. Captain Aldridge found Lore supervising training. She'd trained 60 Marines now. Technique had spread to other units, other divisions, being implemented across Pacific Theater. Casualty rates from enemy snipers had dropped 68% where employed. Thousands of lives. Aldridge's face told her something was wrong before he spoke. Sergeant Thatcher, we need to talk, privately. They walked to Camp Edge, out of earshot. The Silver Star recommendation, Aldridge said. It's been denied. Lore felt warmth drain from her chest. On what grounds, sir? Aldridge's jaw was tight. Angry. Official reason, insufficient documentation. Unofficial reason. He paused. Brass doesn't want a female sergeant receiving major decoration. They think it would undermine morale, make male Marines feel inadequate. The words hit like physical blows. 37 kills, 68% casualty reduction. Technique saving thousands. Not enough, because she was a woman. I protested, Aldridge continued. Drummond protested. Maxwell himself protested. We were overruled at division level. I see. Lore, he stopped, started again. Sergeant, this is wrong. Everyone who was there knows what you did. Everyone benefiting knows its value. This is just politics, bureaucracy, cowardice. Yes, sir. I'm going to keep fighting. Drummond will keep fighting. This isn't over. But Lore knew it was. Could see it in Aldridge's eyes, feel it in her gut. The system had decided a woman could innovate, teach, save lives, but couldn't be officially recognized because recognition meant visibility. Visibility meant questions about why a woman was in combat. Better to let her contribution disappear into anonymous Pacific Theater innovations. Sir, Lore said carefully. I didn't climb that tree for a medal. I climbed it because Marines were dying. As long as technique saves lives, that's what matters. It's not enough, Sergeant. It has to be enough, sir. It's all we've got. August 1945. War was over. Japan surrendered after atomic bombs fell on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The killing stopped. Lore stood on transport ship deck heading to San Francisco. Around her, Marines celebrated. Laughing, crying, finally believing they might actually make it home. She'd survived. Through New Guinea, Philippines, Palau, had accumulated 52 confirmed kills, all from elevated positions, all using technique her father taught, had trained over 200 Marines, had watched technique spread, had seen casualty rates plummet, had never received official recognition. Ship's horn sounded. America was 3 days away, home, whatever that meant now. Detroit, Michigan, 1952. Lorelei Whitmore, no longer sergeant, just Lore, stood in engineering class at Wayne State University. One of 3 women in program. Only one who'd served in combat. Only one who'd killed more people than most infantry platoons. Professor explained stress calculations for bridge construction. Lore took notes, drew diagrams, tried focusing on formulas instead of memories, tried not seeing faces when she closed her eyes. After class, she walked to her factory job, 3rd shift at Ford Motor Company. Assembly line work, GI Bill paid for school but not living expenses. Her hands scarred from bark and blood and recoil now assembled carburetors, tightened bolts, performed same motion 3,000 times per shift, different repetition than working rifle bolt, same mechanical precision required. At midnight during break, she sat outside looking up at night sky, trying to see stars through Detroit's industrial haze, mostly failing. Thought about Mississippi, about her father, about Caleb who'd been drafted 1945 but never saw combat, came home intact. She'd bought him that. With 37 lives taken, with technique that saved thousands, had bought him that with her silence, with willingness to let history forget. It was enough, had to be enough. 1973, Washington, D.C. Dr. Nathaniel Hargrove was 73, retired history professor spending final years researching forgotten aspects of World War II. He'd stumbled onto something strange. Declassified documents from Pacific Theater kept referencing elevated sniper tactics implemented starting late 1943. Tactics that dramatically reduced casualties, been taught throughout Marine Corps, become standard doctrine. But nowhere could Hargrove find who developed these tactics. Documents referred vaguely to field innovations and Pacific Theater adaptations, as if tactics spontaneously materialized from nowhere. Hargrove knew better. Innovations didn't appear from nowhere. Someone had to be first. He started digging, found after-action reports from 1st Marine Division, August 1943, found references to Sergeant L. Thatcher who'd engaged enemy forces from elevated position, found casualty statistics showing dramatic drop immediately following, found commendations from Aldridge and Drummond, found Silver Star recommendation that had been denied, found exactly 0 official recognition of the person who'd invented a technique that saved thousands. Hargrove picked up his phone, started making calls. Detroit, March 1974. Lore was 52, hair graying, hands showing wear of 29 years at Ford. She'd retired in 1975 after nearly 3 decades on the line and child rearing. Her 2 children, Ezekiel Jr., 26, and Hannah, 24, had grown up hearing nothing about her war service. She'd told them she was a clerk, filed paperwork, nothing exciting. Medals stayed in dresser box, unopened, untouched. When letter arrived from Dr. Hargrove, she almost threw it away. Dear Mrs. Whitmore, my research indicates you may be Sergeant Lorelei Thatcher, who served with 1st Marine Division in 1943. If so, I believe you were instrumental in developing elevated sniper tactics that saved thousands of American lives. I am writing an article about forgotten tactical innovations. Would you be willing to speak with me? Lore read it 3 times. Someone remembered. After 31 years, someone found the story. She wrote back. Short letter. Confirmed identity. Agreed to interview. 1 week later, Hargrove sat in her modest living room recorder, running notebook open. Mrs. Whitmore, he said, can you tell me what happened on August 18, 1943? And for the first time in 3 decades, Lore told the story. May 1974, Quantico, Virginia. Invitation came from Lieutenant Colonel Robert Davidson, commanding officer of Marine Corps Sniper School. We would be honored if you would visit our facility and speak with our instructors about your experiences. Lore almost declined. What could she tell modern Marines that would be relevant? War was 30 years past. Technology had changed, but Garrett, her husband, good man, who'd never pressed about the war, encouraged her. They want to honor you, he'd said. Let them. So she went. Quantico Sniper School was everything Montford Point hadn't been. Modern, well-equipped, integrated though still overwhelmingly male. Instructors gathered in classroom. 20 hard-faced men who'd seen combat in Korea, men who knew killing, who understood weight. Davidson introduced her simply, this is Lorelei Thatcher. In 1943, she pioneered the techniques we still teach for elevated sniper employment. She's here to talk about how and why. For 2 hours, Lore spoke. About Mississippi, about her father, about climbing a tree while Marines died, about mathematics of shooting downward, about staying still while taking concentrated fire, about cost, faces, weight that never got lighter. Instructors listened without interruption. When she finished, young Captain couldn't have been 30 raised his hand. Ma'am, he said, why did you disobey orders knowing you could be court-martialed? Lore thought about Caleb, about Brennan, about all boys who deserve chances to grow old, because the book didn't match what my eyes saw. When that happens, you have to trust your eyes. Books written by people who weren't there, but you are. You see what they can't. Sometimes you have to break rules to do what's right. Captain nodded slowly. That's not what they taught us in OCS, ma'am. No, Lore agreed. I don't imagine it is. After formal presentation, instructors took her to training grounds, showed her how they taught elevated positioning now. Platforms, techniques, safety protocols, all based on what she'd improvised 31 years ago. We call it the Thatcher method, Davidson said, though most students don't know who Thatcher was, just that it works. That's enough, Lore said, and meant it. September 1978. Tokyo, Japan. Lieutenant Takeshi Yamamoto was 74, had survived the war, returned to Japan, spent 33 years trying to forget what he'd seen. A journalist was interviewing him for a documentary about Pacific Campaign. Tell me about New Guinea, the journalist said. August 1943. Yamamoto closed his eyes, saw the map, saw his positions, saw everything collapsing. We had built perfect trap, he said in careful English. Snipers in trees, interlocking fields of fire. Americans could not advance without casualties, could not see us, could not stop us. What changed? A woman changed. Yamamoto opened eyes. American woman, sergeant. She climbed higher than our snipers, shot from above, killed 23 of my best men in one morning. A woman did this? Yes. We intercepted radio, female voice. We called her Yama no Akuma, Mountain Devil. My men became afraid of trees after her. Journalist wrote notes. How did you feel about being defeated by a woman? Yamamoto was quiet for a long moment, at time ashamed, angry. In Japanese culture, defeat by woman is dishonorable. But now, he shook head, now I think differently. She was warrior, better warrior than my snipers, better than me. If Japan had listened to such women, perhaps war would have ended differently, perhaps better. He looked directly at camera. She earned my respect. I hope she survived. I hope she had good life. She deserved good life. August 1982. Quantico, Virginia. Lorelei Thatcher was 61, hair white, hands showing arthritis, but eyes still sharp, still saw what others missed. Ceremony was small. Drummond had died 3 years ago. Maxwell was gone too. Most men who'd witnessed what she did were dead or too infirm to travel. But Brigadier General Aldridge, retired, was there, 81 and using cane but still straight-backed. And Brennan, now grandfather, retired auto worker from Ohio who'd made it home because a woman in a tree kept him alive. Lieutenant Colonel Davidson reading citation, "The Silver Star is awarded to Sergeant Lorelei M. Thatcher for gallantry in action against enemy forces in New Guinea, August 18, 1943. Despite heavy enemy fire and without regard for personal safety, Sergeant Thatcher engaged and neutralized 37 enemy combatants, including 27 snipers, in a coordinated defensive network enabling American forces to secure strategic positions and preventing significant friendly casualties. Her innovative tactical approach under extreme circumstances reflects great credit upon herself and the United States Marine Corps. 39 years late. Brennan pinned metal to her jacket. His hands shook, tears ran down weathered face. "You saved my life, Sarge," he said quietly. "Got to see my kids grow up, got to hold my grandkids, all because you climbed that tree." Lore touched his hand. "You would have done the same, Silas." "I hope so, ma'am. I truly hope so." After ceremony, General Aldridge approached. They hadn't spoken in 20 years. "Lore," he said, "I'm sorry it took this long. Better late than never, sir." "That's generous. It's not enough. You should have received this in 1943. Should have received it while men you saved were still young. While..." Voice broke. "While it meant something. It means something now, sir. Means the system can admit when it's wrong, even if it takes 4 decades. Aldridge shook head. "You're a better person than I am, Sergeant." "I'm just tired, sir. Tired of being angry about things I can't change." October 1995. Detroit. Lorelei Whitmore née Thatcher died October 3, 1995. She was 74. Heart attack. Quick. Merciful. Her obituary in Detroit Free Press was 4 paragraphs. Lorelei M. Whitmore, 74, of Detroit, died October 3rd at her home. She was born in Greenwood, Mississippi, and served in the Marine Corps during World War II. After the war, she worked as mechanical engineer for Ford Motor Company for 29 years until her retirement in 1975. She is survived by her husband Garrett, children Ezekiel Jr. and Hannah, and 4 grandchildren. Services at First Baptist Church October 7th, 4 paragraphs. Nothing about 37 kills, nothing about elevated tactics, nothing about changing modern warfare. But Marines remembered. Funeral attended by over 200 people. Most were men Lore had never met. Men who'd learned Thatcher method, men whose lives were saved by techniques she pioneered. Brennan gave eulogy, voice steady despite grief. "I was 19 in that jungle," he said. "Scared. Didn't know if I'd see next birthday. Then this woman 5'7" weighed nothing, looked like she'd break in. Strong wind climbed a tree and saved my life. Saved all our lives." He paused, gathered himself. "She taught me courage isn't about being fearless, it's about being terrified and doing right thing anyway. She taught me sometimes rulebook is wrong. Sometimes you have to trust what you see over what you're told. She taught me heroes don't always look like what we expect. Sometimes they're women from Mississippi who learned to hunt squirrels and turned those lessons into something that saved thousands. World didn't recognize her properly, didn't honor her when it should have. But we know. Everyone in this room knows. Lorelei Thatcher was warrior, teacher, hero. And I got to hold my grandchildren because she climbed a tree." 1998. Quantico, Virginia Marine Corps Sniper School officially designated their elevated tactics course as the Thatcher Protocol. Small plaque mounted near training grounds. Sergeant Lorelei M. Thatcher, 1921-1995. Pioneer of elevated sniper tactics, New Guinea. August 18, 1943, 27. Enemy snipers eliminated. Most students passed without reading. Those who did wondered who Thatcher was. Most assumed it was a man. Technique lived on. Name endured. Story faded. August 18, 2018. 75 years later. Lieutenant Audrey Whitmore graduated Marine Corps Sniper School on 75th anniversary of her grandmother's actions. Instructors didn't mention connection. Didn't realize. Whitmore was her father's name, Garrett Whitmore. Thatcher was grandmother's maiden name. Connection was invisible unless you knew to look. Audrey learned Thatcher protocol in week 6. Learned to identify viable trees, construct platforms, calculate angles shooting downward. Learned everything her grandmother invented in moment of desperate improvisation. Thatcher protocol saved thousands in World War II, her instructor said. Still saves lives today in mountain and forest environments. Master it, use it, honor it. After graduation, Audrey's father took her aside, handed her small box. Inside a silver star, tarnished, old, ribbon faded. "This was your grandmother's," Ezekiel Jr. said. "She earned it 1943. Didn't receive until 1982, 39 years late." Why so late? Because she was woman. Because system didn't want to admit a woman could do what she did. Because recognition was easier to deny than give. He pressed metal into her hand. "The protocol you just learned, your grandmother invented that. Climbed a tree when everyone said impossible. Killed 37 enemy combatants in under 3 hours. 27 of them snipers. Changed warfare forever. Grandmother did that. She did. And never talked about it. Never bragged, never demanded recognition. Just did work and let work speak for itself." Audrey looked at metal. At name engraved on back, SGT Lorelei M. Thatcher. "Why didn't anyone tell me?" "Because your grandmother didn't want to be remembered as killer. Wanted to be remembered as mother, grandmother. Woman who did what was necessary, then came home and lived quiet life. But she was hero. Yes, but on her terms, not world's terms." 2024. Present day. Thatcher protocol is taught in 47 countries. Standard training for snipers in forested or mountainous terrain. Has saved estimated 8,000 lives since implementation. Most Marines who learn it don't know Thatcher was woman. Don't know she invented it at 22. Don't know she was denied recognition for 39 years. They just know it works. At Quantico, instructors still demonstrate technique. still reference Thatcher's original engagement as case study in adaptive tactics, still teach Marines to look up when everyone else looks forward. Plaque near training grounds has been replaced. New one includes more information. Sergeant Lorelei M. Thatcher, 1921-1995. Montford Point, Marine pioneer of elevated sniper tactics. 27 enemy snipers plus 10. Infantry eliminated August 18, 1943, New Guinea. When the book doesn't match your eyes, trust your eyes. Most students still pass without reading, but some stop, some read, some ask questions. Some learn that heroes don't always look like what we expect, that courage doesn't always follow rulebook, that sometimes most important innovations come from people system tried to forget. Epilogue, Mississippi, 1931. Ezekiel Thatcher climbed down from oak tree where his daughter waited. Girl was 10, small for her age, but hands were steady on .22 rifle. Eyes were sharp, focused. "Did I do it right, Daddy?" Lorelei asked. Ezekiel looked at squirrel she'd shot. Clean kill, 40 yards with iron sights. From elevated platform she'd insisted on building herself. "You did perfect, baby girl, perfect. Mama says girls shouldn't hunt, says it's not proper." Ezekiel sat beside his daughter on platform, looked out at Mississippi woods stretching everywhere. "Your mama's right about a lot of things," he said carefully, "but not this. Hunting's not about being boy or girl. It's about having eyes to see and hands to do what needs doing." "But what if people say, 'Baby girl, listen, world's gonna tell you all kinds of things about what you can and can't do, about what's proper for girl, about staying on ground when you should be climbing high.'" He put hand on her shoulder. "But when your eyes see something true, you trust that truth. Not what people tell you, not what rules say, what your eyes see and your heart knows. Even if everyone says I'm wrong, especially then." Lorelei looked down at rifle in her hands, at squirrel she'd shot, at platform they'd built together. "Daddy, if I practice real hard, could I get good enough to hit anything?" Ezekiel smiled, saw something in his daughter's eyes, something fierce, something that wouldn't be denied. "Baby girl, I think you could hit the stars if you aimed right." He didn't know then that 12 years later his daughter would climb a tree in jungle on the other side of the world, would take lessons learned in Mississippi woods and turn them into something that changed warfare, would save thousands of lives by trusting what her eyes saw over what rule books said, would be forgotten by history and remembered by men who lived because of her, would prove that sometimes most important heroes are ones who do work and let work speak for itself. But on that day in 1931, all he knew was this: his daughter could shoot, could climb, could see what others missed, and that would have to be enough. It was more than enough. It was everything.